Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel. Together, we're going to be diving into some stories of ordinary people doing a little bit of extraordinary things. People who've maybe pushed their bodies, their mindsets, or maybe society's paradigms. So you're going to find yourself maybe wanting to laugh, cry, or even be inspired. We would invite you to share, like, and subscribe, to sign up for our newsletter as well on activateandilluminate.com. Now, just keep in mind that this information that you are going to hear is informational and educational for entertainment purposes only. This does not constitute professional advice of any kind. The views expressed are those of myself and guests only. Listeners are encouraged to seek professional and legal advice regarding their own situations. So, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and thanks again for being here. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So, we have a little bit of a surprise. I promised you a surprise. So, if you heard this story about me talking about really laying in my bed, looking for a Christmas miracle, thinking, man, I should really do a podcast about a Christmas miracle. And then I found Amalia's story. Now, Amalia is here with me. I read the story earlier post that you may have seen, so I'm not going to go into that whole story. But Amalia essentially had a near-death experience and a walk-in experience. Now, we're going to get into it, but Amalia, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, you're catching us on the fly. We're recording this on Christmas Eve. You're in your vehicle running your errands, and I just appreciate your time. So maybe before we get into the actual story, tell us a little bit about who you were when this all happened, and then we'll go from there.
Well, the spirit or soul who got in the accident had been through a lot of trauma. She had a lot of trauma in her life. She was actually homeless when she got in this accident. Her and all of her belongings and her dog were in the car that rolled over. And actually, I have to tell a story about, it's kind of funny because she was an advocate seatbelt wearer. Like, she wore her seatbelt everywhere. And she stopped and paid her cell phone bill before she hit the road. And she went to go click that seatbelt and had a thought of, screw it. If I'm meant to be here, I'll be here. And flung the belt off. And 30 minutes later, the accident happened. But back to how she was right before the accident, her kids had been stolen from her they were still married, but they had been separated because divorce is expensive. And he loaded those kids on a plane and moved them 2,000 miles away. The soul before, Amber, had a very traumatic life, I would call it. She was always in survival mode.
So now you're talking in the third in the third tense, and is that how you feel like it was completely somebody else?
It was completely somebody else, and
yeah,
my friends and family will testify to that. They even say that things are changing, like my hair color is changing, my voice has changed, my demeanor has changed, the way I approach things has changed. I would say yes, it's a completely different soul. And I'll tell you, when we get into it, I know it's a completely different soul.
Okay. So now maybe give us an overview. Maybe give us an overview of what actually happened. You alluded to the seatbelt and the stuff. Tell us essentially what transpired, some of what your body went through afterwards, and let's talk about the actual experience of that for a little bit.
Okay, well, I will start with, I had the near-death experience, and that's when we passed the torch. Amber and I passed the torch, but I don't think either one of us, well, at least I didn't realize that that's what had happened until years later, almost 7 years later, and we'll get into that. But what happened was, like I said, Amber flung her seatbelt off and then got on the highway. She was going to another town. And it was snowing pretty good outside. And she was going about 60 miles an hour. And she rode in a trucker's blind spot for probably longer than she should have. And he didn't see her and tried to come over, and it drug her into the median. And instead of just allowing the car to go into the median, out of natural response, she overcorrected the car, which flipped the car, and she went out the driver's window. She had it cracked. She was a smoker. She had it cracked to smoke, and she ended up going out the driver's window. And ironically, there was a cop passing at the same time this accident happened, and he wasn't even on shift. He was going to clock in to be on shift, but he was the first responder because he was passing as it happened. And what I can remember of the near-death experience is I can remember viewing my body laying there in the snow and the cop trying really hard to keep me stable and keep me alive and keep the blood not pouring out from my head. And I can remember seeing my dog standing there, and my dog stood there all the way up until the police officer tried to approach him. And when the police officer tried to approach him, he ran off. And of course, I was more important than the dog was, so he came back to me. And that's all I remember viewing the body. And then I was brought to, I have a really hard time explaining this because it's so much more than these third dimensional terms can give it. So I'm going to say I was brought to a field, but it was way more than a field. It was like engulfed in love and peace and harmony, and the colors were so vibrant, and just the love that I could feel there. Like I didn't want to go back. The love that was felt there was unreal. I don't remember seeing any other beings. It was just me in this quote unquote field. Like I said, that's the best description I have of it on this third dimension, but it was way more than a field. And then I want to say that I want to make a disclaimer that a lot of what I say is hearsay. Like, I don't have any memory from the point of Amber letting go of the steering wheel and saying, screw it. Like, hang on, relax. And that's the last memory I have for 5 weeks. I don't remember anything. I have one memory, and we'll get into that, but I don't remember anything for 5 weeks. So, mind you, until we get to the story where I'm 5 weeks in the hospital, all of it is hearsay or medical records. I've looked at my medical records. I have copies of my medical records, but I guess that I died once and they were able to resuscitate me with CPR. And then in the ambulance on the way back to the hospital, because with clear roads, it was about a 15-minute drive to the hospital, maybe 20 minutes. But not on clear roads. I guess it took them an hour and a half to get there. And in the ambulance, they had to resuscitate me with the defibrillator. They had to shock me back to life. And I feel like that's when I was brought out of that beautiful field, and I have no memory past then. But when I got to the hospital, I wasn't supposed to live. As a matter of fact, they called my family and told my family to come say their goodbyes. That's how certain they were that I was going to die. And so my family came and said their goodbyes, and I ended up living for 3 or 4 days, and they said, okay, so she's probably going to live, but she'll never walk, she'll never talk, she'll always have to be taken care of. She's going to be a paraplegic that has to be taken care of for the rest of her life. And again, hearsay, I guess even when they came in and said that, I tried to mumble something with tubes all down my throat and in my nose and all kinds of things in a coma. I guess I tried to mumble something at that point. And then I guess I would try to take the tubes out of my throat and I had a feeding tube, a breathing tube, all the tubes down my throat. And I guess I constantly tried to remove them. And so they restrained my hands to the bed. And after about 12 days of being in the coma, they It was a medically induced coma. After 12 days, they said, okay, let's try to bring her out of this coma. Let's see what happens. And they started to bring me out of the coma. And I guess I got really hostile and wanted to get out of bed, tried moving around, would pulling the tubes out. And so they restrained my hands to the bed, and I really got hostile then because I couldn't move. Mind you, this is all hearsay. I really don't have any true memory of it. I'm just telling you what I was told happened. I got pretty hostile and kept pulling the tubes, trying to pull the tubes out of my throat, and they said, you know what? She's so determined to get those tubes out. Let's give her the chance. Let's pull them and see if she can breathe on her own, see if she can eat on her own. Maybe she can. Maybe we're not giving her the benefit of the doubt. And so they took the tubes and I breathed on my own. And I was on a liquid diet, but I ate on my own. And so they brought me out of the coma. And then week 3, I'm not sure. Well, let's go back. All the injuries that I sustained, I degloved the left side of my face. I broke my spine C7 through T5, which should paralyze me. Like, even the doctor says he's never seen a break in a back like that where somebody literally walks away from it. And then I had a traumatic brain injury. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I pretty much split my brain in half. During the hospital stay, I had 15 plus blood transfusions. And then in week 3, I can't remember the ward that they sent me to, but I was in that ward and my grandma came in. This is the one memory I have in 5 weeks. And I remember it like it was yesterday. My grandma came and saw me in that ward and was telling me, you know, when you get out, we'll go do all these cool things. I'll take you to Disneyland. We'll go to Hawaii. She was telling me all these marvelous things that we would do once we got out of the hospital. And I wasn't willing to wait. I wanted to go right now. And so I tried rolling out of bed, and she had to jump up and, like, restrain me in bed and push the nurse's button to come help her get me back in bed. And that's when they decided maybe we should give her the benefit of the doubt and see if she can stand up. Maybe she can, and we're just thinking that she can't because of her injuries. And so they brought in a physical therapist, the biggest physical therapist that they had. Mind you, hearsay again. I guess he was over 6 foot tall and just a bulky guy. And he stood me up out of bed and got me to the standing position, and I didn't crumble or fall. And he was like, wow, she's standing up. And so he placed his feet under my feet and pretty much assisted me to walk. And he walked me all the way to the bathroom in my room and back. And he was like, I think this girl's ready for the physical therapy ward. Like, she's ready to give this a try. Everybody was so surprised. And then in week 5, that's when I got moved to the physical therapy ward. And this is my first memory, and all of the memories after this are actual memories of mine. I guess they would come in every day and ask me, you know, the common questions. What's your name? What's your kid's name? What's your birthday? And then they would ask me what time it was. Well, this time when they asked me what time it was, I said, if you guys ask me one more time what time it is without getting me some glasses, I'm going to lose my crap. I need some glasses. I can't see that clock. And the nurse looked at my grandpa, who was in the room, and was like, well, that could explain why she's been telling us the wrong time all this time. And my mom hopped up and immediately went and got me some glasses. That was my first memory. Like, I can blatantly remember being like, oh, I'm so irritated that they're asking me to see something that I can't see.
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
So did you feel like time was linear, or did you feel like
You know, I'm not really sure. I would say that it had shifted. I felt like everything was different. Everything was different. But that was my first memory. And then, like I said, they had me on a liquid diet. And it was so gross. That liquid diet was so gross. And so I asked him, like, why? Why do I have to be on this liquid diet? It's disgusting. And so they explained to me, well, the brain injury that you endured, you're more than likely going to inhale your food. It's going to go in your lungs when you eat it. And I was like, I don't think so. You should let me give it a try. And so they decided to let me give it a try. And I ordered pizza. Of course I ordered pizza. Like, that's the American dream. So I ordered pizza was my first meal. And I can remember the nurse sitting across the table from me, and she was like diligently watching everything I did, every bite I took, every swallow I took. So I asked her, I said, is there a reason that you're watching me so hardly? And she said, well, like we said, technically, you should be inhaling that food, not swallowing it. So the fact that you're swallowing it's really surprising me. And I was like, well, it's really good. Of course I'm swallowing it. And I kept eating the pizza, and I ate my entire meal and did good. And that's when they decided, she's doing way better than we expected her to be doing. And that's when I started climbing stairs and walking on treadmills, and I would put these little pins and pinholes because I wasn't supposed to have the coordination that I have. And I went through occupational therapy, passed it, went through speech therapy, passed it. And then all of a sudden I remembered, oh, my husband took my kids from me. Like, if I don't get out of this hospital, he is technically going to become a citizen of Tennessee, and he's going to be able to file for divorce in Tennessee, and I'm going to have to find a way to travel to Tennessee to fight for my kids, and that's just not fair. I'm not the one who took them to Tennessee. So I asked the hospital, I said, what do I got to do to get out of here? Because I was supposed to be, that happened on December 27th. I was supposed to be in the hospital until August of 2018. Of August 28. Okay, so the accident happened December 27th, 2017. I was supposed to be in the hospital until August of 2018. February of 2018 is when I realized I can't be in the hospital that long. Like, my whole life will crumble if I don't get out of here. And so I asked them, what do I got to do to get out of here? And they told me everything I had to do. And I did all those things with flying colors. And they were like, okay, well, now you need a caregiver. And so me and my mom talked, and my mom agreed to let me move into her house, and she would be my caregiver. And they released it. Well, let's back up. I could do everything but pee. Like, I could not for the life of me go to the bathroom with audience standing there, like, because they had to watch me. They had to make sure I was safe. They couldn't leave the bathroom. And there was a few times that they would stand on the outside of the door, and I'm like, that doesn't help. I know you're on the outside of the door. So I had passed every test that they told me that I had to pass and able to be released, except for peeing on my own. And they were willing to release me because I could catheterize myself. And I can remember my mom was packing up the rest of my stuff and taking it down to the car. And I was like, all right, I've got to go to the bathroom before I leave. And I sat down on the bed to give myself a catheter and peed all over the bed, all over myself. It was the most miraculous pee ever, because I realized you can't pee. Look, there's nobody in the room, and it happened. So I literally passed every test, and they released me. And I can remember when I got home to my mom's house, she has a porch with stairs, and I walked up those stairs not holding on to anything. And I spun around to her, and I was like, look, Mom, no hands. And it made her cry. She's like, that just reminded me of you at 5 riding a bicycle. But yeah, aww. I did a miraculous recovery in the hospital. I will say before they released me, they came in and told me, you really do need back surgery. Like, that's a pretty bad break in your back. I really suggest you get the back surgery. And my outtake was you cut me open once, you're going to spend my entire life cutting me open. I say, is there any way that I can get out of this surgery? Like, is this a have-to surgery, or can we try to do some things before I have to get the surgery? And the doctor said, well, yeah, you can wear, because the entire time I was in the hospital, I wore a torso brace is what it's called, but it goes from your hips to your shoulders and it's back and front. And it was uncomfortable, but he was like, yeah, you can wear that brace until at very least 8 weeks, but probably longer than that. And I said, done deal. I'll wear the brace. You're not cutting me open. Like, I just know that once you start, you won't stop. And I wore that brace and 8 weeks went by. And when I went to the back doctor and got the x-rays and seeing where I was at 8 weeks, he was like, well, you're totally healed. Like, miraculously, you can't even tell you broke your back. And I ripped that back brace off like it was nothing. There was no tomorrow when I had that back brace come off me. So yeah, it only took 8 weeks for my back to recover too. And don't get me wrong, there's days that I can feel a pinch in my back, but it doesn't bother me. I don't have problems. Like, I'm a caregiver. I lift people all the time. I bend, like, there's things, and I'm not supposed to be walking or talking, and I work 40 plus hours a week taking care of other people. Like,
Wow.
yeah, go
Wow.
ahead.
So now you said something. So your basic premise and drive to get out of the hospital was essentially because you had to fight for your kids. So tell us what happened there. Like, in a short little. You don't have to go into all the details, but tell us what happened with that. And then we'll get into some of maybe the spiritual side of all of this that happened to you.
Okay, well, we'll start with, let me tell you that everything felt different to me. Like, it was almost like I didn't know my mom. I didn't know my family. I didn't know anything. Everything felt very foreign to me from the moment I started having memories until a long time. Everything felt very foreign to me. And I just wrote it off on having a brain injury. I thought it was because I had suffered a TBI. I later found out that is not the case. But okay, now let's go into my kids. What happened was I was able to get out and file for divorce, but of course divorce takes forever. So it was 2 years before I actually got divorced and was able to see my kids again. But I did see my kids again and got 50-50 custody of them. Unfortunately, primary custody being in Tennessee, but I did have every holiday, spring break, summer break. So basically, when they weren't in school, I had them. I eventually ended up with custody of them, but that's a whole different story for a whole different podcast. The spiritual side of it is, like I was saying, everything felt foreign to me. Like, when people would talk to me about memories or do you remembers, or the ones that some of them I would be like, what are you talking about? No, I don't remember. And again, I wrote that off on a traumatic brain injury. But the ones I did remember, I felt like I was remembering somebody else's memory that had told me, and I was just reciting what they had told me. But I didn't feel like I was remembering my memory for sure. And then, like I said, I got custody. I eventually ended up with custody of my kids, so they lived here in Idaho with me. And in January of 2025, I got the call that their dad had passed away with self-harm. And that was really hard on me and the kids, especially because we, quote unquote, ended on such bad terms. Like, me and him hadn't talked in probably 6 years, and him and my oldest son hadn't talked in 3 years. And him and my youngest son hadn't talked in 1.5 years. So it was hard to hear that he had passed away on those terms. And I was dating a guy named Aaron at that time, which I later found out through research and meditation is my twin flame. But I was dating a guy named Aaron, and Aaron told me, Amber, Amalia really needs to connect with these spirits. Like, you really need to connect with Ty. You really need to connect with Ty. And I was like, no, like, I'm too angry. This is not a good time. I know enough about the spiritual side of things to know that going into it with anger is never good. And I am way too angry right now. Like, no. And so I laid in bed, and I had to work the next morning, which I worked at 5 a.m. I still work at 5 a.m., but I worked at 5 a.m. every morning. And I had to work the next morning, and I tossed and I turned and I tossed and I turned and I tried to go to sleep, but I could not for the life of me get to sleep. And it was about 1:45. I was like, screw it. I'm going to get up and go to work. I'm going to do what I need to do before work. And then I'll just go sit at work until I can clock in, because I'm not going to sit here and toss and turn. This is ridiculous. And so I got up and got in the shower, and that's when everything started to change. Like, I could feel everything starting to change, textures of everything, like everything just started to change. So I got in the shower and I'm showering, and I could feel Ty's presence, almost like he was in the shower with me. And he was saying to me, come with me. Okay, let me back up. When I say he was saying to me, there actually is no talking in the spiritual world. It's more of a knowing or a frequency that you feel. You don't actually hear words. So when I say he was saying to me, that's what I mean by that, okay? He was saying to me, come with me. I've got to show you. Come with me. I've got to show you. And no, now is not the time. Like, I am too mad at you. Like, you left on really bad terms with me and the kids. Now is not the time. And because I was in that mindset and he had things to show me on the spiritual side, I would describe it as I went to hell. Like, I went to a very suffocating realm. It was very heavy. It was very loud. There was a lot of souls there trying to convince me that I should stay. Just talking about it, the dense feeling that I had on my soul makes my heart hurt right now. It was so dense. That's why I would describe it as hell. I really, truly believe it was hell. And that's where Amber had her life review. Like, I watched everything Amber had done, every person that she had encountered, the way that they felt when she encountered them, and the actions that she took and how it made them feel. A life review was way different than I could have ever imagined it to be. Like, you don't just review your life. You review your life and know exactly how that made the other person feel. Like, when you had that transaction, you don't really necessarily get to see how you felt. You get to see how they felt by that transaction. And like I said, it was really dense and I just couldn't take anymore. And mind you, in the spirit world, you don't even have ears. But in my visual mind, I covered my ears and just started having really nice, thankful, grateful thoughts. Like, I started thinking about my kids were the first thing I started thinking about. And then how grateful I was for living through that accident. Like, I shouldn't have lived through it. So I was really grateful that I did. And the good times that I had with Ty, that is my ex-husband's name. The good times I had with Ty, lots of grateful thoughts that I was thinking. And I was abruptly, mind you, again, I'm in the shower this whole time. On this third dimension, I'm actually in the shower, like taking a shower, getting ready for work. I can't tell you any of it. I don't remember it. I don't remember being in the shower. I don't remember getting ready for work. But I do remember being on these realms very well. Anyway, so I was abruptly pulled upward. And that's where I encountered Ty and Amber's spirit. And I was actually kind of confused. Like, if I am Amber, how am I viewing her spirit? Like, this is making no sense to me. But I stood there and observed what was happening. And what was happening is Tyrone and Amber were closing up their soul contract. Like, Tyrone was letting Amber know that, oh, I'm going to cry. Excuse me if I cry through this because it was a lot. But
Yeah, that's
Ty was telling Amber, everything that happened was for love. Everything that happened, everything that we went through, everything that we conquered together, it was love. It was a way to show you love. And so I watched Amber and Ty tie up their soul contract, and again, there was no saying, but Ty turned to me and said, "We're gonna stay here. You're going back, but not the same." And I was like, what do you mean? And then Okay, so in this whole time, Aaron, my boyfriend, was on the phone with me. And so I actually have a witness to everything that happened in this. But in this time, not only did I shower and get ready for work, but I got in my car and drove, which gives it, Jesus Take the Wheel a whole new meaning to me. And I call it was grounded. I was grounded a few times through this experience. And one of the times was when I pulled, because I had to go to a client's house and grab his hearing aids and take his hearing aids to him in the hospital. And so I went to his house to grab his hearing aids. And I don't remember getting out of the car. I just remember walking in his house, and the souls in that house were thick. I wouldn't say they were mean or mad. There was just a lot of them, a lot of souls in this house. And I can remember that. That's the one of the times I was grounded during this experience. But then when I left the house, I don't remember getting back in the car. I don't remember driving. This is, again, I would assume when Ty and Amber were tying up their soul contract on the, as I call it, on the astral realm. And if you need me to go into what I mean by the astral realm, because I know there's people out there that are like, what is an astral realm? I will. But I can tell you I just did tell you everything that happened on the astral realm. So we're going to talk about the times that I can remember what happened here on this realm. And one of them is going into my client's house. I don't remember getting back in the car. I don't remember driving. I do remember I had to drop some money off at my house for my kids for school. And I was about 15 minutes from my house, and I hit an animal. And it grounded me again, as I call it, grounded me again. And I said, Aaron, I just hit an animal. And he said, what kind of animal? And I said, I don't know, a raccoon-sized animal? And that's all I remember of that. I was pulled back up to the astral realm. Again, all while I was driving, Jesus Take the Wheel. And then I pulled into my driveway, and I can kind of remember walking up my porch, and I can kind of remember going in my house and laying the money down on the counter. But what I really do remember is when I got back in my car, when I looked around, everything, and I mean everything, my hands, the steering wheel, the neighbor's house, everything looked like a video game. And when I tell people that, they're like, what do you mean a video game? And then the best way I can describe that is Mario Brothers. And then they say, oh, so like a cartoon. So yes, like a cartoon. Everything, even my hands, looked like a cartoon. And that's when I realized this isn't reality. This isn't reality. The astral where I'm watching this whole contract close, that's reality. That is way more real than what I'm viewing down here right now. And I said to Aaron, who is still on the phone with me, I said, everything looks like a video game, and I am driving. Pray for me. And then I don't remember anything after that. I pulled out of the driveway, drove probably another 15 minutes. And then as I was pulling into Twin Falls, I was quote unquote grounded again. But I would say I was more, that's when Ty said to me, we're staying, but you're going back, not the same. And the best description I can give it is I was literally slammed back into this body. Like it actually physically hurt. I could feel it from head to toe. There was an ache, like it hurt. And I now know that just the density of integrating to myself, by myself, like no longer having the soul of Amber to direct me, because she directed me for 7 years. Even though she died in 2017, her soul stuck around and helped me know her life and her family and give me some of her memories. And she had some soul contracts to still tie up here on Earth. Obviously, Ty being a big one, because when he passed away and went on to the astral realm, that's when she was like, all right, I'm done. I'm staying. You're going. But I now realize that ache feeling that I felt when I was slammed back into my body was just the density of this dimension. This dimension is very, very dense.
So did you feel like when you came into this, did you feel any sort of grief for the life or the person that you had been?
I bawled my eyes out. bawled, absolutely bawled. I felt like I was grieving a death. That's what I felt like. And really, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bawled my eyes out, like bawled my eyes out. And it probably for a good week afterwards, I would bawl my eyes out. Like I would see memories of her, like a picture with her name written on it or an old picture of her and the kids. And it would just make me cry immensely, immensely. And she would comfort me and from the spirit world tell me, I'm way better off. Don't be so sad. You have a mission to complete and you will be way better at it than I ever was. You go do what I couldn't. Stop grieving me and just be happy for me. And that's when I decided, ooh, I'm crying now. That's when I decided that she deserved for me to hang her name up. Like, she had been through way more than I could ever handle. That girl went through so much, and I didn't deserve to carry on her name. In meditation, me and her talked about it, and she said, I don't care if you carry on my name. I'm not sure how my kids will feel about you having a new name, but if you want to hang up my name, I'm honored. Thank you for hanging up my name. And really, the kids took it really, really well. The older son, he said, when I told him, he said, I don't care. You're still my mom. I still love you. And I was like, wow. And then my younger son, he's a comic. So I broke it to him and he was like, wait, what? You're telling me I lost my mom and my dad on the same day? Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm telling you, Caden. And he's like, that's just crazy. And I was like, but I'm still your mom. I am still your mom, and I will love you probably more now than I did before. So both kids took it really well.
So did they have any, did they understand the concept right away, and did they just reconcile it in their head right away, or did they struggle through the concept of what had transpired?
I'm really grateful that Amber spent a lot of years before her near-death experience. She spent a lot of years waking her kids up. So her kids were very awake when this whole integration happened. So they took it really well. Yeah, sure, they had some questions, but really, who doesn't? I can tell you that I get bombarded with questions from adults. So I'm sure the kids have questions. So yeah, they had questions, but they took it really well. As a matter of fact, even now they'll be like, do you remember? Yeah, probably not. It's not your memory. And I'm like, well, test me. I might. You're right. It's not my memory, but I could possibly remember some of it. Test me. Let's do this. And so they'll ask me, and there's some things that I don't like when they ask me, when did I take my first steps? I can't tell them that. I can tell them what Amber felt when they took their first steps, but I can't tell them the day, the time. I can't tell them how old they were. I have no memory of that. That wasn't
So you have the feelings, but not the detail.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So they really do handle it well. So they do have questions, every now and then they'll ask me questions about it, but they have taken it so well. They have just accepted it. And like I said, I really thank Amber for the work that and now that I know everything, our souls knew that this was going to happen. So Amber did all of that knowing that this was going to happen. Did she in the present moment know it was going to happen? No. Her vessel didn't know, but her soul knew. Her soul knew what she had to be doing, and her soul knew that she needed to prepare these kids for a really traumatic incident. So I really thank Amber for taking the time she had been on the awakening journey for a good 5 or 7 years before her near-death experience. So she had 5 to 7 years explaining to these kids, these crazy, phenomenal things that could happen.
That's so curious. So all the while she was living this traumatic existence, she was also preparing herself. That's so fascinating. So tell me, who would you say had the hardest time with it?
I would say, the majority of my family. The only one who still talks to me is my grandmother. And she doesn't disagree with it, but she doesn't necessarily accept it. Like, she still calls me Amber, and she tells me, "You'll always be Amber to me," which is okay with me. Like, I'm not going to force that on her. If she doesn't want to wrap her mind around it, that is totally fine. If she wants to call me Amber, I'm honored. Call me Amber. But like my mom, my grandpa, really everybody but my grandma kind of distanced themselves from me because I was crazy. I had lost my mind. The brain injury had done too much damage. Like, a lot of my family had walked away. I would say the only people that I have left are my kids and my grandma.
Wow. So when you talked before about this soul mission, what is your soul mission?
To activate and awaken people. Like, time is running short. You've either got to be awake to the illusions or you're going to be caught up in the illusions. And I was sent here to activate and awake people, like to make them remember that we are way more than human. We are actually a soul having a human experience. And they have programmed us and decentralized us to the point of forgetting that. And I'm here to help people remember that we're way more than human, and we've been lied to all of our lives.
Tell me about that.
Well, we'll start with school. School is a really good way to keep people obeying and listening to them and controlled. Religion is another one, but school, I don't find it ironic that there's 12 years of school and there is actually 13, but there's 12 dimensions too. I don't find the irony in that at all. There's no irony to me. Like, they knew what they were doing. They knew that they had to do it this way, and they had to indoctrinate us to keep us controlled, to keep us bound to earth, to keep us from escaping this loop, as I would call it, this reincarnation loop. Like, once you awaken and you realize that you're way more than human and you have all of these capabilities and really you're a power manifester, if you feel and believe and do the right things in life, you can think of something and boom, there it is. Like, if we all knew that, they would have no control over us. So they knew that they had to be really tight on put them in a classroom with 30 kids, make sure that they don't talk to each other, make sure that they recite their alphabet 15 times a day so they have nothing else to talk about. Like, don't let them know that they are way more than humans, and what they're learning here is bullcrap. I'm sorry to say it, but it is. Like, there is so much more that we need to learn. We need to learn how to regulate our nervous systems. We need to learn all about the ego. We need to learn about what Jesus really meant when he said, treat others the way you want treated. You know, what I have found out is what he meant by that is your neighbor is you wearing a different costume, learning a different way. So make sure you treat your neighbor the way you would want treated because your neighbor is you. And they didn't want us to find that out. They had no plans of us ever finding that out until people like me and you started waking up and coming to this planet to help with the shift. I mean, Gaia, or Mother Earth, is going through a huge shift right now, which is why so many people are waking up.
Yeah.
So, and then religion is another one. I always refer to a meme that I saw that said there's a bishop standing there talking to a shaman, and he says, "What religion is God?" And the shaman says, "God doesn't have a religion." And that is so true. Like, how could you pin one religion on the ultimate consciousness? You just can't. Like, religion was here to divide and make us hate each other and keep us separated. Because if we all came together, we would realize we're way more than human.
So true, Amber. I just called you Amber.
It's
Amalia.
okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm honored with either name.
So tell me, do you experience life in all these full 12 dimensions?
Yes, I will say now that I'm fully integrated into this vessel, I do a lot of what I call astral traveling, and it all depends on my thoughts. When a lot of it, I would say 99% of it happens when I'm sleeping, and it all depends
Yeah.
on my thoughts when I go to sleep. Like, do I want to go to the lower dimensions or do I want to go to the higher dimensions? It all has to
So
do
all of our
with
lives, what you're saying right there is that our entire existence is programmable by what we decide to think about before we go to sleep.
absolutely, absolutely, especially because your soul doesn't need sleep. Only your vessel needs sleep. Your soul is busy doing other things, seeing other things, talking to other beings, learning other things. This vessel, controls your soul through your consciousness because that's ultimately what your soul is. It's just a consciousness. So really your whole life depends on your thoughts. I tell everybody you create your own reality, and that is more than true. So if you think you're having a bad day, you're going to have a bad day because your soul is going to listen to the thoughts that you're having. So, okay, that guy's being a butthole. Cool. Think about how grateful you are for your kids, how grateful you are for the shoes that you're wearing, how grateful that you aren't him having a bad day. Switch your thoughts from one angle to the other and your whole life will change. But yes, sleeping is a real big one because your soul doesn't need sleep. So you've got to be careful about the thoughts that you fall asleep with because those are the dimensions you're going to travel while you're sleeping.
So what do you struggle with the most now?
And people on this realm don't have any compassion. They are just so stuck in the 9 to 5 and mad about the fact that they don't have money for groceries. And my thought is okay, but you have shoes on your feet and you're getting in your car to go home and you have a house. Like there's so many more things you could be grateful for than the fact that you work a 9 to 5 and you're mad about working a 9 to 5. Like there's so much more to be grateful for than that one negative thought. So that would probably be my hardest thing is where my soul came from. There wasn't the duality that there is here. We had way more compassion. We worked way more in unison. Language is another hard one I have a hard time with is there's a lot of misunderstandings down here all based on language because the same word can mean two things here. And so, the dimension that I come from, there is no language. There's just knowing or telepathy. We just speak by knowing. So there's a
Do
way
you
less.
experience,
Go
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt you, do you experience telepathy here?
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah.
actually I have taught myself how to quote unquote turn it off because
Yep.
a lot of humans here, they don't have nice thoughts. They
Yeah.
hold a lot of secrets. They tell a lot of lies, and that hurts my heart. So, unless I want to know what they're thinking and what they're feeling, I just have learned how to tune it out, as I would say. I don't want to know because what you're thinking or what you're feeling is not good and it hurts my heart. It makes
Yep.
me want to say something to you and then I'm going to be the crazy one. So, yes, I do experience a lot of telepathy.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that I want to talk to you about. So what's some advice that you would give to people going through this that are maybe starting to feel like I was just having this conversation today with a friend and her husband, and we were talking about this idea of this simulation and this idea of what this world that we're living in, exactly what you were talking about, going through these motions day by day. And, what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe starting to see little glimpses of a life that maybe there's more and that we're more than just this simulated experience? What would you say to us?
Start being grateful. Like when you catch yourself having that negative thought of, oh, I don't have food tonight, automatically stop it with, but I have shoes on my feet and I have a car to drive home and I have kids to go see. Like, for every one negative thought you have 3 positive thoughts. That would be my best advice to anybody. Like, that will change your life. If you can actually do that and stick to it, it will change your life. Like, for everyone, make it 3. So you have a negative thought of, oh, that butthole just cut me off in traffic. I really hope he makes it home safe. I wish him the best. I hope his kids are doing good. Like, for everyone, have 3. And it will eventually become habit. And you'll realize that negative thoughts don't even come to you anymore. It just is naturally that when that butthole cuts you off, you say, God bless you. I hope you get where you're going safe. Like, you just do it. You don't even have to tell yourself to do it.
So I want to respect your time. I know we have a time
You're
crunch here,
fine.
but tell me, what do you know now that you didn't know then?
That we are multidimensional beings. Even though I'm in this vessel right now and I'm talking to you on this dimension, I can guarantee part of my soul is somewhere else doing something else on some other dimension. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I've been brought to that
Have you met
understanding that we
yourself?
are.
Have you
Yes,
met
I have.
yourself out there in different
Yes.
versions?
That's what I
Yeah.
was going to say is I've ran into myself on other dimensions. I'm like, oh, it's true. We really are multidimensional. And it almost feels like a dream. And that's when I realized that wasn't a dream. Like, I was viewing myself multidimensionally. And another
Sure.
thing that I didn't know that I know now is we're all one. Like, we all come from the greater consciousness or God, or as I like to refer to it, the Most High. Like, we are all, as I put it, quantum particles of that same consciousness. Like, I had no idea of that, and now I do understand that. And that helps to the whole saying that I call him Yeshua, because that's actually his name. The whole saying that Yeshua said of treat others the way you want treated. Like, ties right into we are all one. We're just wearing different costumes, learning different ways. The Most High wanted to know how he got to the unconditional state, the unconditional love state that he is in now. He wanted to know how he did that. So he split up his consciousness into quantum particles on many dimensions to learn in many different ways of how he got exactly where, and I refer to him as he, but he doesn't have a gender. Souls, energy, consciousness don't have a gender. That is totally a duality thing. But yeah, that would be another thing that I've learned is that we are all one. Like, we're all the same quote unquote thing, just wearing different costumes, learning different ways. So be careful how you treat your neighbor, because that is you.
So to somebody out there struggling right now, or maybe having a tough time or trying to, navigate reality or navigate life, what would you say to those ones?
Don't worry about the small stuff. It doesn't matter in the bigger picture. What matters is how much you love, how much you care, how well you treat others. I will say, from watching Amber's life review, really be careful of, it doesn't matter what kind of day you're having. It really matters how you're treating other people. How are you learning unconditional love? How are you learning to wake up from the Most High's dream of being a human? I would say that would be what I would say to ones with the struggle is the only thing that really matters is unconditional love. As hard as that seems to understand as a third dimensional being, it is so true. That is the only thing that truly matters is how are you treating yourself and how are you treating others?
So true. Well, I think we're going to leave it there for now. When you talked about your mission being to activate and awaken, I don't think that there was any mistake that myself here in frozen Alberta right now, reading my phone, in the wee hours, came across your story after thinking about and wanting to shed light on a story about a Christmas miracle. And then when I found out that this had happened to you essentially at Christmas time, and just, how your body has transpired and changed in ways that, nobody would have thought possible. And not only just your body, but your spiritual self in ways that, nobody thought possible. I don't think it was any accident that I saw your story, reached out to you, and that you said yes. And now you've graciously given me your time on Christmas Eve. So thank you so much, Amalia. Thank you for everything that you are doing. Thank you for everything that you are being, and for showing up to maybe give us a glimpse of something a little different. So for people out there, Amalia, that have heard your story and, are maybe struggling, or, have had something similar happen and they don't quite have answers for it, or they want to reach out and talk to you, how do people get a hold of you?
My Facebook, I would say that I get a lot of downloads now that I'm an integrated soul. The Most High talks to me a lot. So I use Facebook to dump all my downloads on, and my direct messages are always open. I try my hardest to get to people in a timely manner. Just be patient. If I don't answer you, know that I will. But my Facebook is under Amalia Lynn Kovach, and I will spell that for anybody who's ready. AMALIA Lynn LYNN Kovach KOVACH. Just go ahead and friend me and send me a direct message if you have any questions or you need help. I'm here to help, and no, I'm not going to charge anybody money for getting a hold of me to help them. That's not my job. My job is to activate and awaken people, not charge you money. So feel free to direct message me over anything you want to know about.
Well, thank you so much again
Thank
for
you.
everything that you are doing and being, and again for being part of the Activate and Illuminate podcast with a soul mission like yours to activate and awaken people. So we appreciate you, and thank you for saying yes to this, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and everybody who's watching. Have a Merry Christmas.